This is going to be P6 factoring. Today we're going to talk about GCF and factoring by grouping, okay? This little cheat sheet kind of thing that I have here at the top, I always refer to this. When something says to factor, the first thing you should look for is GCF. What do I mean by GCF? What does that mean? What is greatest common factor, okay? It can be a number, it can be a letter, a variable, or it can be a combination of both. But you should always, 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 always look for a common factor. So that's what we're going to do today. And then the second thing we're going to talk about is grouping. The only time we use grouping is when we have 4 terms. All right, we'll get to this stuff in the middle here on Tuesday, Wednesday, but I just kind of want to focus on this stuff right now. So we're going to look at these first examples here. All you have to do is greatest common factor. This is not a trinomial or a special product, anything like that. But when I look at A, okay, guys, and this is what I expect to see on your homework. I expect to see this work. I expect to see what's in your brain, so I know you know what you're doing. But when I look at letter A, is there a letter and or a number that they have in common?
3x.
3x, right? So I'm going to pull the greatest common factor out in front. They each have a 3x in it, but I don't take 3x and put it twice out in front. Whatever the greatest common factor is, you divide it out of each term and you put it out in front one time. So when I do my division, guys, 3 divided by 3 is 1. X squared divided by x leaves me with 1x. Minus 6 divided by 3 is 2. And x divided by x cancels out. Here is my factored form of letter A. We're not solving right now. We're not setting it equal to 0 and figuring out what the zeros are or anything. All we're doing is just taking out the common factors. Does anybody have any questions about that? No? All right. All right, so then I go over to number 2. Okay? Number 2 is a little more involved, but it's not anything out of the ordinary. It's nothing different. Look first at the numbers. Look at the coefficients. Is there a number or a factor that 8, 6, and -2 all share? What can you take out of all 3 of those?
2xy.
Okay, okay, good. You can definitely take out a 2 from all of them. Does every single term have at least 1x? Yes. Does every single term have at least 2 y's? Yes. When you guys are looking at variables, whichever variable is the lowest, that's the number that you can take out of all of them. So now when I do this, I'm going to divide everything by 2xy squared. 2xy squared, 2xy squared. So 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. X to the 4th divided by x to the 1st gives me x cubed. Y squareds cancel out. Questions? All right, 6 divided by 2 is +3. X cubed divided by x is x squared. Y cubed divided by y squared leaves me with 1y. Remember, we're dividing dividing bases that are the same. You subtract exponents. And then at the end here, -2 divided by 2 is -1. X divided by x is x divided by x is 1. It cancels out. And then y to the 4th divided by y squared is y squared. And there is your answer. Questions? Everybody all right? Yes, ma'am? All right, now we're going to go down to this one. How is this one a little different from the other ones we did? How's this one a little different?
Is it the negatives?
Yep. This one leads with a negative. You never want your polynomial to lead with a negative. All right, so what would I have to take out between 15, 5, and 10 that would make my first term become positive?
-1.
Negative, well, what I agree with negative, but what goes into 15, 5, and 10?
5.
Okay, good. And then how many y's can I take out of every single one?
1.
2, right? Whatever the smallest exponent is, that's what you can take out. So -5y squared. So watch, guys, when I do this, when I divide everything by -5y squared, you're going to have some sign changes, so make sure you're paying attention. Negative 15 divided by negative 5 is positive 3. And then y to the fourth divided by y squared is y squared. Positive 5 divided by negative 5 is going to give me negative 1. And then y cubed divided by y squared is just y. Negative 10 divided by negative 5 is plus 2. And what happens to my y squareds? They cancel out. And there is our factored polynomial. Notice that this is positive. We always want whatever's out in front to be positive. Questions? All right. The reason I took off the next one is because it was a repeat of B. I didn't realize that. So let's go over to the next slide. At the bottom, factor by grouping. All right, when we factor by grouping, you have to have 4 terms. In order to group, you have 4 terms, okay? 4 terms only. But you still start off asking yourself the exact same question. You say, is there a GCF? So look at A. Is there a GCF? Is there a letter or a number that I can take out of all 4 terms?
No.
No? Okay, so I have 4 terms. I'm going to group. And I want you to notice how I group, guys. Whatever is with this middle term here, whatever the sign is, stays with it. And you'll see why in a second as we go through. But in this first parenthesis of x cubed and x squared, what can I take out? What do they both have?
Squared.
Okay, so I can take out x squared. And when I do, x cubed divided by x squared is x. And x squared divided by x squared is plus 1.
This is 1.
Yep. All right, what happens with the next parenthesis? Look at 4x plus 4. What can I take out of 4x plus 4?
4.
Positive 4. And then when I do that, divide by 4, I'm left with x plus 1. Everybody see that? What do you notice about the blue parentheses?
They're both the same.
They're the same. All right, that is now, guys, our common term. Like in our other examples, if the common term was 3, you took out 3, you wrote it out front once, you write x plus 1. Whoops. You write x plus 1 out in front one time. You don't write it twice. You just write it one time, so it's gone. And then whatever is left over gets its own parenthesis. So then I'm left with x squared plus 4. And that is your factored answer. Questions? Anybody? All right, let's look over at B. Again, first question we ask ourselves, is there a GCF? Yes or no? Is there a letter or a number I can take out of all 4?
No.
No. So I'm going to group. I'm going to take the first 2, and I'm going to take the second 2. Notice that I kept that negative sign inside the parentheses. That's very important. So in that first parentheses, I have x cubed minus 2x squared. What can I take out of both terms? X squared. And when I do that, I'm left with x minus 2. Everybody see that? Now, in the next one, what can I take out of negative 3x and positive 6? Negative 3. Now, if you guys miss that, if you don't write this down, if you say I'm going to take out a 3, okay, if you divide everything by 3, you'd be left with negative x plus 2. When we group, we want our 2 parentheses to be the same. Are those 2 parentheses exactly the same?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
No, because the x is negative and the 2 is positive. So that's why it's important, guys. If there is a negative there in this second parenthesis, you take out the negative. So most of you said negative 3, which is perfect. If I take out a negative 3 and then I divide that out of each term, what's a negative 3 divided by negative 3? Negative divided by a negative is a
Positive.
Positive, so I have x. And then what happens with 6 divided by negative 3?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. Now what do you guys notice about the two parentheses that are left over?
They're the same.
They are the same. So they now are the common term that I'm going to take out. So I take out that common term and I write it one time out in front. I say x minus 2. So now that that's gone, what happens to the leftovers? They get what?
They get a parenthesis.
They get their own parentheses. Perfect. And there's your answer. Are we starting to remember grouping a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, it's not crazy hard. You guys can all handle it. We're okay. All right, I have a few more examples I want us to work through together, and then that's going to be it for today. And you guys can start your homework. So if I look at number 1, first thing we always ask ourselves is there a GCF? There is not. So I'm going to group the first 2 and the second 2. Remember to keep that negative sign with that term. So between 12x cubed and 9x squared, what do they both have in common? Number-wise and variable-wise?
3x
Good. 3x what?
squared.
Perfect. So I'm going to divide out a 3x squared and a 3x squared. And I'm left with 12 divided by 3 is 4. X cubed divided by x squared is x. Minus, oh wait, make that a plus. Let's make that a plus. What's 9 divided by 3? 3, and then my x squareds cancel out. Okay, now let's go on. What can I take out of negative 4x minus 3?
Negative 1.
Negative 1, because watch what happens when I take out that negative 1. What's negative 4 divided by negative 1? 4x. What's negative 3 divided by negative 1? Positive 3. What do you guys notice about the two parentheses in the middle?
They're the same.
They're now the same. If you didn't make that little change that I did as I was going through, you're sitting there going, what is she, why, how did she get that? Because you got to change this original to a plus. So I rewrite my common parenthesis out in front one time. And then what happens to my leftovers? They get what?
Big one. They get a parenthesis.
They get their own parentheses. If you guys notice, I have said the same thing every single time. The only thing that's changed are the numbers. But the process is exactly the same. This is what I should see on your homework for your problems. I should not just see 2 parentheses with answers, because that means you got it from somebody else. I should see your work, see your thought process. Look at number 2. First thing I ask, is there a GCF? Is there one? No, so I have my 4 terms that I'm going to group. In that first parenthesis, what can I take out of 2x cubed and 5x squared?
X squared.
X squared.
Okay, take out the x squared. When I divide it out, I get 2. X cubed divided by x squared is just x. And then plus 5, my x squareds cancel out. Now I go to my second parenthesis. What can I take out of 6x plus 15? You guys should notice that this first parenthesis should be your guide as to what to take out, because you want the second parenthesis to be the same as the first. So what would you have to take out of 6 and 15 to make them a 2 and a 5?
3.
Yep. That's a good thing to look at, is like, oh, if I, to kind of figure out. So when I take out a positive 3, I'm left with 6 divided by 3 is 2, and then I have x, plus 15 divided by 3 is 5. What do we notice about our 2 parentheses?
They're the same.
They're exactly the same, so I take them out and I write them one time out in front. And then what happens with my leftovers?
Parentheses.
Parentheses, x squared plus 3. Again, same exact process as the other ones. 2 more. You guys okay? Anybody have any questions? Everybody's all right? Okay. First question that I always ask myself is, what do I always ask first? Is there a what?
Greatest common factor.
Is there a greatest common factor? Is there a GCF? No. So I'm going to take the first two terms and the last two terms. What can I take out of y cubed and y squared?
Y squared.
Y squared. Perfect. When I do that, divide by y squared, I'm left with y cubed divided by y squared is y. And then y squared divided by y squared is 1. So y minus 1. In the second parenthesis, what can I take out of 2y minus 2?
2.
A positive 2. And when I do that, I'm left with y minus 1. All right, same thing. What do I notice about these two parentheses? What do you notice?
The same.
They're exactly the same. Good. So I take it out front, write it one time, and then what happens with my leftovers? They get their own parenthesis. Perfect. Now, some of you ask me, how do you know? Like, what happened? How can I check? I could, from this point right here, I could FOIL this out. And if I FOIL it out, I will get my original answer, or my original problem. So you can always check these. You can always FOIL it back out and see if you get the original. If you don't, then you did something wrong. But it's a good thing to kind of do as you go through. First question we ask ourselves is there a GCF? Is there a number or a letter that I can take out of all 4 of these terms? No. So group, please, the first 2 and the second 2. Make sure that middle sign stays there. So between 5y cubed and 10y squared, what can I take out, number-wise and letter-wise?
5y squared.
5y squared. Perfect. Good job, guys. So when I do that, 5y squared out of both. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Y cubed divided by y squared is 1y. And then I have minus. What's 10 divided by 5? 10 divided by 5. 2. Thank you. And my y's cancel out. So now I look to my next parenthesis. Well, what can I take out of 3y and a negative 6? What can I take out?
3.
Okay, so I take out a positive 3. So divide by 3, and I'm left with y minus 2. What do we notice about our two parentheses?
They're the same.
They are exactly the same, so I write that one time out in front, and then what happens to my leftovers?
Parentheses.
5y squared plus 3. There's your answer. So tonight's homework is only involving GCF, which is the first couple examples we did, and then factor by grouping, which is the last little examples that I did. Okay? So I'm going to show you your homework right now. Let me end the video. All right, this is the factoring part 1.